there, Gaijin.
I don't know if I can make it.
Of course you can. We just have to keep pushing.
Okay, we got this.
We made it. We reached the cap.
Oh no, what's that?
Huh?
Look, further ahead.
Man, fuck this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Third Fleet Podcast. This is episode 76, and we are getting back that consistency. I'm here with Gaijin Hunter. How you doing, Gaijin?
Hello. I'm surprisingly awake despite all the grinding I've been doing in the last few weeks, but I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
That is absolute insanity.
And you're not sick today, right?
No, I'm not. I'm not sick today.
I've been seeing comments of like we're back is like, okay, you are both sleepy and Rory's got a cold.
Yeah, but
it's like
I feel like I'm always in a permanent state of having a cold. Like there's just something. I feel like this is something that was onset with age, where I just permanently feel like there's a piece of phlegm in my throat. Like there's just it's just
you
permanent.
talk so much every day,
there.
so
Yeah, that there. I guess there is that. I've been trying to do these vocal warm-up exercises that my voice acting friend suggested, which is actually funny because it's just, the trollolol guy, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, that's actually a very good vocal warm-up. So usually before I do anything, like before we started recording this podcast, I was pacing around the office going like, yeah. Because supposedly that's good for your
you got to do
voice.
that on the podcast, man. Save it for that. That'd be entertaining.
Yeah,
Open
so-
up with
So we just
Rory's
open up.
vocal training.
And every opening sequence of the podcast is me going, "Trollololololololololol, ha 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 ha."
That would be great.
That
Man.
that is some good times. But yeah, I've been pretty busy. I haven't really been playing a whole lot of Monster Hunter. I did make it. I think I made it up to Anomaly rank 221. And then I was just like, okay, I've hit the wall again, and I really want to go do these 300 Anomaly special investigations. But I'm be real, I'm not willing to put in like the 50 hours or however long it's going to take me, especially because we also had some recent releases like Jedi Survivor, and I wanted to play that despite the fact that that game is busted, which is something that I'll have to talk about in my review. Before we really get deep into the topics, I need to ask you, dude, what the hell is going on in the gaming industry that it seems like most publishers just feel like, hey, we're going to release a broken game, but hey, don't worry. We promise we'll fix it.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is specifically talking about PC versions, right?
Not
console
just
games in general.
PC version. Like a lot of,
Oh?
like, look, I don't know what everyone's standards is when it comes to consoles. But like, look, I have, even despite the fact some people say, oh, you have lower standards because you play on the Switch. It's like, well, yes, I play games on the Switch. I don't care that much about frame rate when I'm playing on the Switch. But if I'm playing on the PlayStation 5, I'm like, bro, I have a completely different set of expectations and a completely different set of standards. I don't expect my Switch to output 1440p at 60 FPS, but I definitely expect the PlayStation to do that in most cases. And good God, even on PlayStation 5, Jedi Survivor is not there. And this is after there was a patch like yesterday, and the game is still struggling in performance mode. So that for a lot of people, they've been saying, oh, console is fine, the problem is PC. And I'm like, no. You're sorry, dude. I do not agree with that at all. There's problems in console as well. So like, what's the deal with these publishers, man? It's just like, oh yeah, we'll release it now and then we'll fix it later. Don't worry about it. It's like a promise.
Yeah, I have a guess, but I have no idea if it's correct. But it has to do with like knowing a little bit about how like animation movies or just movies in general are made and how games are made and the differences between them. Like I think most people would be surprised to find out that, and this is not for every case, of course, but I would say most large AAA games, let's say it's a 4-year development or something like that, right?
In this
the
case,
first year is
it's actually interesting that you bring that up because they specifically bragged about the fact that like, oh yeah, we put this one together in record time. It was like 3.5 years they put this game together.
yeah. So I would say like,
And it's like, yeah, it shows.
yeah, like the first year, games are so costly to make, and I know people debate me about that all the time, but they are getting more expensive. So like, we'll save the price battle for another day. But,
Yeah.
like the first year of a game is probably, skeleton crew, right? Coming up with, pre-production. Like, okay, what are the systems? What's the game going to be? How many stages? How many characters? Sort of really get a good bearing on what you're going to make. Then I'd say maybe from like year 1.5 or so, then they start hiring people and ramping up into full production, getting external vendors all set up and, sending out for models and environments and all that kind of stuff. But the actual game doesn't really come together as an actual game until like the last 6 months before release. I think that might shock some people. Like literally months before release is when it all comes together. Because you have so many parts that are being run by so many different departments and leads that once it finally gets all put together and then they can start doing some quality QA on like a pre-alpha, like you're a year away from release already at that point, which is tight. Then you've got distribution issues. So it's like the release date, it's got to be done like 2-3 months before that, right? Maybe 2 months now. I don't know. It depends on what countries they're selling at, but let's say 2 months before. So they've got like a window of what, like 3-4 months for debugging and finessing. That's not enough because they're working with so many configurations. And the fact is when they're doing development and they don't have it all together, one, they don't have a good grasp on what everything is. Two, they can't test every configuration during that. They're usually on PC developing, right? With tools and specs that are way beyond what the consumer machine, setting will be.
But see, that's
so then
the
when
thing. Jedi Survivor specifically, at least it ran. I don't know how the current patch affects PC because this is a very recent patch. I know that it didn't fix every problem I had on console, but it was specifically like people with giga friggin' high rigs that were having the problems. Like people with 4090s, state of the line processors, all of that stuff, and the game was running like ass.
Yeah, well, maybe they prioritized one of the console versions. I don't know for that game specifically, but I just think that game development is tough, right? Because everything it's such a big production. It's not like films where like they'll wrap filming and then they'll just be in post-production for like 9 months, editing and putting it together, whatever, and color grading and fixing and stuff like that. And it's a set environment. It's just a movie, They don't have to worry about the different environments it's being run on in real time. I think games something has to change with the way that games are developed, right? I think Scrum is a good idea if done properly, but I'm guessing sometimes it doesn't. But it's like games have to be planned like 3-4 years in advance now for AAA titles, if not more. And then they're so locked in on their release date that if they were to slip, it would either screw up their fiscal and their shareholders, or it'd be a really bad timing to release the game because timing is huge. And the marketing budgets now are like half the cost of development. So like, let's say you got like a $80 million production, they're probably spending like $30 million on marketing.
I think that is
on top of that.
I think that is way too much. I think that is way too much to begin with.
Yeah.
And on top of it, it's just one of those situations where it feels very frustrating because like I played the game, I finished the game by now, and I actually think that it's a pretty good game. It's not the best game ever, but it's a pretty good game. But fundamentally, this pretty good game in an IP that I really like, which is Star Wars. You have a team that, in my opinion, respects the lore of Star Wars more than the people that are actually making the movies at this point, which is ridiculous, but that's what I believe about this team. And then you just end up with a product that is just like the only thing that people are going to remember is, oh, ran like ass. It was terrible. It was atrocious because of performance issues. That's it. But everything else in the game, there's actually a good game under all of that. And it sucks to see it happen because you're thinking like, man, this could have been like one of the best releases of 2023. Instead of that, it's just everything people remember is the performance problem.
Yeah, I'm really curious though for large organizations how that happens. Like the Cyberpunk situation, right? Where QA was flagging that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
and they just were shushed, you know? Like, so it's like, are they just pushing it out to push it out? Is that an executive call? Is it the producers that are not communicating to the executives quick enough that there's an issue? Or I don't know. But the scale of these things are so huge. I don't know. Maybe there just needs to be a better development method, like a methodology, like Scrum, like some type of offset that helps.
What is Scrum?
out.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Scrum is okay. So like typical game development back in the day would be like, okay, we've got a milestone. Let's say we're gonna have a vertical slice. You know, a little bit of each feature, maybe one monster, one stage, one background, one boss, a few items you can get. Like that's what's called a vertical slice. And let's say they make that. And then they have a first playable, which is before that. That's like after a prototype. And they got these phases, right? And it's like 6 months apart where they're like, okay, this is what we're going to have in each build and we're going to work towards it. The problem with that development is it worked really well for a long time because asset creation wasn't that expensive compared to how it is now with models and stuff.
Assets now has to be complete insanity.
It's very tough. And a lot of outsourcing. Like you can't just hire 600 people to work in your studio full time for 3 years. The price would be ridiculous. So the problem is like that way of development worked really well, but the issues were that you couldn't really, one, it was sloppy, so it was hard to actually get everything all together. Sloppy, you know, like since I do a good impression of that. But,
you do. That's good.
But like changing course is really hard. When you start to realize there's issues, there's almost nothing you could do to adjust because every single milestone, like MS Project, like all the way down to finish, is all planned out. So it's very hard to make a creative decision at the end that doesn't just kill the team on overtime. Or to just make okay, we need to focus more on this or something like that. It's so rigid. So the West, I think it's the West, I could be wrong, but Western developers in general, from my perspective of seeing Japanese developers, took to Scrum, which is a development process for software, it almost sets everything up by like, it's a whole process. Your whole team has to be doing it. They've got Scrum Masters, meetings, and what it is it's more granular. So it's like they'll have a weekly check-in and they'll have a board saying this is what we're doing this week. Then they do a reevaluation at the end of that week or 2 weeks, whatever the sprint or whatever it might be. And then they'll reevaluate and constantly change it as they go. It's a completely different frame of thinking of how to manage stuff, but it works really well when done properly. So it's instead of just going quiet and go like, oh, I haven't talked to the art leads for like a month. I don't know what. No. The Scrum team is meeting every week. They're talking about it. They're looking at the progress and they're making adjustments on the fly. I think the reason why Japanese development gets really complicated is one, they never really adopted. I think it's because the handheld were so popular here that I think like true like AAA, like huge team design Japan was late to that, right? And you can't just use the old school Japanese development method to make those games. They take forever because Japanese developers are famous for, and I like this about them, if they find a cool idea in like the final 20% development lap, they'll do a complete about change and embrace it. They'll just, hey, we find the game as we make it, like that type of mentality. Yeah. But it also means that stuff gets delayed and there's a lot of overtime.
Yeah, but it's I think that it getting delayed is a much more acceptable outcome than the game just releasing in a completely busted state, especially with...
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough one, right? I mean, I don't know what goes into those decisions. Like, hey, if we delay this, we're gonna have to discount for holiday because the timing's off, or we're gonna be on top of another major release, and
I think that
financial people are saying it's gonna be 30% less sales. It's damage control at that point.
Yeah, I think that the other releases is one of the big reasons why they wanted to release right now and they didn't want it to miss the window, which is, in like less than 2 weeks, Zelda Breath of the Wild, not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, which is like, dude, that game is going to take the world by storm pretty much. It is what it is.
I'll say the most controversial thing, because no one agrees with me on this. Okay. I think AAA games in general, I mean, as a consumer, it's great, but thinking about it like normally, I think they're doing too much. I think games need to dial it the hell back. They don't need to have every freaking mode, every freaking this, that, like dial down your scope a little bit so that your schedule has more of a buffer so that you can polish it, add those modes later if the game takes off. Otherwise, just like cut back on a little bit. I think they're just biting off more than they can chew because they want to be the biggest and baddest. I mean, the games are just crazy feature-wise these days.
Yeah, I mean, Jedi Survivor specifically from like a visual standpoint, if you put it in quality mode, it is a visually impressive game. It looks fantastic. But I think that, and this is an interesting video that I made yesterday, which I feel like that moment where you're in awe, it lasts for anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. And
I still get it in Monster Hunter Rise. I still get that moment of awe a lot.
I mean, you get, I don't know if I believe that. Like I feel like, look, I get moments of awe when I first see something and I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. I'm talking specifically about visual fidelity. So when I'm talking about visual fidelity, I'm not talking about like animations or set pieces.
Just wow, this is crisp and the textures
this looks
are amazing.
so
It looks
good.
so real.
Look at these ray tracing stuff. Look at these reflections. I think that feeling of awe specifically for visual fidelity lasts for about 10 to 30 minutes. And within, let's say, a 30-hour experience, I think you might spend like 1 hour, maybe 2 if I'm being really generous, being amazed by the visual fidelity, just the visual fidelity, like the texture resolution, the ray tracing, the reflections, the shadows. All of these things will probably entertain you for like 2 hours of a 30-hour experience. The rest of it, you don't care. The game's in motion. You're focused on what's actually happening in the game, assuming the game's good. The animations, all of that other stuff kicks in, and that's what you're focused on. And at that point, does it really matter if the game is running in 4K, if it's running at 30 FPS? Or would it be better if it was running at a lower resolution at 60?
Yeah, I hope hardware can... It's hard, right? Because hardware is for a wide range of consumers, but it would be nice to be in a day and age where all the hardware can do ray tracing easily, because that, in theory, should cut back on development time. Like a lot of the effort of putting in all the shadow maps and all that kind of stuff, like to have a global lighting system like that would really help them focus on other stuff. But like we're still far away from that, obviously. But I don't know. I think it's a case-by-case scenario, because you look at games like, what was that one that launched on Microsoft? Hi-Fi Rush?
Hi-Fi Rush, yeah.
Yeah, like completely polished to...
Yeah.
I don't even know the phrase, but it's just polished to hell. Like ran beautifully, looks beautiful. People loved it. I mean, it's like, and then I think the same studio, Tango, they have another game that's being bashed for technical difficulties. And it's like, how is this the same studio? It's like, well, studios have different development teams and lines, and they do things differently, but like, it is possible to do it. I think budget might be one of those things. Development time, process. I don't know. It's an interesting question. You know what I think we need is, I don't know, maybe they do this at GDC, but my impression is that GDC is more lectures than anything. I would love to see like panels, like study panels where you get game designers and tech leads from different companies just talking and trying to, think it through and come up with different ideas and processes and talking
Actual
about the challenges of game development. Yeah.
The problem...
People are brilliant, and I think they come up with something.
Is that a lot of people don't want to share their trade secrets. They're like, oh no, I solved this. You guys need to sort it out. It's like, hey, this is not my problem. I'm making boku bucks with this solution that I've came up with, and you guys need to handle your own stuff. Unfortunately, it's like every man for himself in the industry.
Yeah. I'm not a programmer. I studied it, self-studied programming on the side for fun. But even just trying to make a simple application that runs on a few different types of systems, I have massive respect for companies that can try to get that shit, because it's insane. Yeah, it's so hard.
Especially if you get like crossplay involved or anything. Yeah.
So I am kind of interested to seeing, like, for all games that have an exclusive either window or pure off exclusivity, I would say probably exclusivity in general, not a window. Like when a developer like the Monster Hunter team, right, when they say, okay, we're going to make a game for the DS or the 3DS. And that wasn't, as far as I know, that wasn't even a deal with Nintendo. It was just them choosing a hardware. Like they're able to focus on one set of specs and just nail it, like, because they don't have to test all these other things. I kind of wonder if you put up all the AAA games that, if they are exclusive to one console, is their performance on average better because they were able to focus on one config or not? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it would be, but it's not necessarily something that we should.
Yeah, I would want. No, I don't want.
I want to make that clear because people will be like, "Oh my God, are they advocating for more exclusive?"
No,
It's
no.
like, no.
Hell no.
Our stance on
You know,
that is
and
like
a positive
every...
note, there was. Oh, sorry. There
No,
was
go
like
ahead.
a tweet I saw the other day where apparently there was an interview with Ryozo Tsujimoto's brother, because that's a family business. I don't know how many people
Yeah.
know that, but like him, his brother, his father, his uncle, like grandfather, they're all in the company running it. So where he was talking about the key to future titles being performant is to have crossplay, and that they intend to have that as a staple in general for the entire company. I'm like,
when was this
hi-
interview?
Are they hinting at crossplay in Monster Hunter? But it was a really interesting comment I saw. I should have saved it so I can actually tell you exactly where and when and what it was. But
damn.
I saw that. I was like, that's really good. Because remember, they made a pledge a few years ago during one of their financial things saying that half of our sales in the next 2 years are going to be PC.
Yeah.
And they said, we are embracing it hardcore. And as far as I know, of all the companies that are coming up with games and having PC issues, Capcom in general is not one of them.
Yeah,
Or I could be wrong.
mean,
I don't know.
I know that they've had some issues with certain configurations, like in Monster Hunter World, but it was like when you compare it to, for instance, Jedi Survivor, it was nowhere close to the same level of problems. The biggest issue that I still have with them is the fact that they still use the Denuvo, but everybody uses the Denuvo in the industry, which is
Yeah.
very frustrating. It's like this cancer that's like attached to the game, and then they have to like give the game some chemotherapy to remove it later.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if this. I mean, what I've heard is that the Denuvo or those types of protections are basically for the first 2 days of sales, because that's where the majority of people will buy it. They will not wait 3 days to get a pirated version.
Yeah.
They'll just buy it and play it. Like, is
I
there
think-
a way that
I
I could just
think
say,
it's
like,
more-
first 2 weeks Denuvo and then pull it out? I don't know. Like,
I think it's more
Just-
for like the first month at least, and then usually they start thinking about pulling it out. I don't know if they ever pulled it out of Monster Hunter World or not, but yeah. It's just
I
it's
hate
just-
those solutions, but it's like you look at the crap that's going on the internet, and it's hard to. You could see both sides, right? Like some guy just leaked the entire freaking Super Mario movie on Twitter because he could.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
I
he
was
should-
like, "What the
Yeah.
crap?" Dude? And when I was looking at that, I was like, "Wait a minute! This is actually." I already saw the movie at the theater, so I just like scrolled a little bit to see it. And I'm like, "Yeah, this is the whole goddamn movie! Like, what is going on? This is wild."
Yeah. So it's like, and then you got the whole Zelda issue going on, right? Like 2 weeks beforehand, because of physical distribution, someone got their hands on it. Of course, it wasn't just some kid who will just play it and enjoy it a little bit earlier than everybody knows. It's got to be someone who rips it and puts it online
Yep.
and shares it. And then you got, sites like Kotaku, and that's a whole nother subject where they're
Oh
like,
my
hey,
God.
we've learned a lot from this. And they're like spoiling everything. Like absolutely
Dude,
no.
We can
Like,
talk about Kotaku though, because I've actually
Jesus.
I've been seeing a little bit of coverage on that whole situation where Kotaku's mad because at one point they made an article that caused Nintendo to blacklist them. You know what the article was about?
What?
It was basically I don't know if it was on release day or even before release day of Metroid Dread. They just straight up said, "Hey, guys, this game runs amazing when emulated." It was like, bro, this.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
We're literally in the launch window of this game. Like, what do you mean?
See, I don't know if it's necessarily revenge. I think it's also a philosophical
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying it's.
mentality
I'm not
issue
saying
with
it's.
Kotaku, because
I'm not saying it's revenge. Oh, I thought you were talking about Nintendo. I'm sorry. Keep going. Keep going.
no, about Nintendo. There's Kotaku's had issues. Even I've gotten into like some grounded arguments and just debates with some of their editors on Twitter, and it's fine. Like, we just have a different position. Like there's people in like news that say, hey, I don't care if it's bad, if it's harmful, if it's anti-consumer, anti-industry. If there's something that's leaked and something that's newsworthy, quote, quote, we're going to cover it. And to me, that's just, what's the word in English? Opportunist and
Oh, yeah.
exploitive.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And the thing is, like, I think they have this mentality of like, hey, if it's newsworthy, we're going to cover it. If we don't, someone else will. I'm like, but the thing is like, yes, you don't work for the companies, right? Like, you don't work for Nintendo. You don't need to. But the thing is you are in the industry. I think of like, sports reporters, like it or not, the industry is what makes you have a job,
Yeah,
and,
pretty much.
And it's your services to the gamers, to the readers. And I would say that the majority of readers would not want them to be talking about, hey, the leaked full version of game reveals a lot about it. Yeah, it reveals everything because it's the game, you
because
idiots.
it's the full game, duh.
Yeah, and then you're just going to start plumping that stuff out there for easier distribution and knowledge. Most gamers don't want that, obviously. And publishers obviously don't want that. And I just think it's just stupid.
See, that's one part where I kind of disagree with you. Unfortunately, most gamers do want that. It's just a majority of our audience doesn't want that, because I feel like that's kind of the audience that we've built, where we usually don't report on leaks, specifically when it comes to Monster Hunter in particular. We're like, no, listen, we want the team to release the stuff when it's ready, so that you can get those wow moments, like when we got Fatalis. Like, oh, by the way, Fatalis, boom! Like, that was awesome. I don't remember if that was leaked or not, because I avoided the crap out of every single leak when it comes to Monster Hunter. So when it comes to our audience, I feel like a majority of them don't want the leaks. But when it comes to the gaming community as a whole, you'd figure if people didn't want the leaks, they wouldn't go out and look for them. But unfortunately, there's that culture where people nowadays, they need all of the information right now. What is happening right now? When's the moment that this is valuable? Right now. And that usually reflects on like YouTube views and article clicks and stuff like that. So there's definitely people out there that want to see those leaks, and they want to get that information the second that it's available. And it kind of sucks, because it does generate this industry where websites like Kotaku just going like, hey, you guys aren't talking to us anyway. We're blacklisted from you or whatever. And they complained about it too. You know about that? They made an article.
Yeah.
Where they were like, well, we'd love to give you a preview of Tears of the Kingdom, but we didn't have access. And it's like, guess what, Kotaku? I used to have access to Nintendo games early as well. I don't have access to Nintendo games anymore. You want to know why? Because leaks. That's why.
Yeah. It's just sad, because like I used to enjoy Kotaku way back when, and now I do not go on that site. I just see them pop up on Twitter, and I'm like, okay, what do they do now? And I just, it's all in the court of public opinion. People decide, but I think companies in an industry need integrity. I just think that there's certain things that just because you can, and this whole like against the establishment, we don't work for them, we owe them nothing. Yeah, but you owe the gamers integrity. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, stop being dicks.
It's just a weird situation overall, but it's Kotaku, so I can't really say that I'm particularly surprised that this has happened.
I don't even know how I got sidetracked on this topic. What were we talking about? I don't know.
We were talking about performance, and then we somehow drifted off into Tears of the Kingdom, but that's all good. I did wanted to bring something up in terms of performance, which is something that I've noticed, specifically when it comes to the Gunlance, to kind of like bring us back into Monster Hunter land, because I was looking at I always like to follow what Ryu is doing, the speedrunner, because he's like, as far as I'm aware, he's like the best Gunlance speedrunner out there, and he's got mad skills. So I look at the stuff that he's doing, and one of the things that I've come to the sad realization is that frame rate limits what you can actually do with the Gunlance in a way that makes me really sad. So, like, to give you an idea, when you do reverse blast dash, which is a thing where he just like thrusts backwards with his shield or whatever, so basically kind of reverse it the same way that you do the the long back hop back in the day. You turn around away from the monster, then you jump backwards twice. We do the same thing to do reverse blast dash, but because of the input timing and the frame rate, for instance, at 60 FPS, I'll be able to do the slam much faster than I can do it at 30. Like, I can literally press the button to do reverse blast dash, and the moment the animation begins, I'm slamming the button to do the slam, and it will only come off after it travels a certain distance. What?
Have you taken the PC game and limited it to 30 FPS to see if you can recreate that on the same platform? I'm kind of curious if it might be a platform difference of response time, right? Maybe the response time is just much better on the PC version. So if you put the PC version to 30 FPS and try it, see what happens, that would be, might be interesting to test.
I kind of do want to test. I didn't think about that. I was thinking about, but at 60 FPS, the point is, if you're close enough to the monster, right? And you just want it, because this is what I would see Ryu do. And this is something that I've done on PC as well. Like, you're sitting right next to the monster's head, and you just go like, reverse blast dash, slam, full burst. And on Switch, it is really hard to pull that move off. And it is doubly hard if instead of using reverse blast dash, you're using like regular blast dash. And it's even harder if you're trying to do that and then shell mid-air into Hail Cutter, which is another really neat trick that we get to do. It's just like the response time.
Yeah, I mean, remember when Generations Ultimate came out, both me and you were experiencing input lag. It was something that we felt, if you remember it. I don't know, maybe you don't.
It's been a long time.
Or maybe it wasn't you, it was someone else I was talking to.
It might have been somebody else. I don't remember this.
Yeah. Or even Rise, I think. I don't know. I'm confused. But yeah, I would test it and see if it's a system thing or if it's an actual FPS thing, because it might not be FPS related. But either way, that sucks to hear.
Point. Yeah, but it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me too much. It's just like something that I'm like, I'm a little bit limited here. And that's kind of like the one thing that I could point to it recently. Because I'm like, I did do a bit of anomaly grind. I'm at 221 right now. How high are you right now in the game?
Oh, you're gonna thrust us into the main topic soon. I see.
I'm 222. Yeah, see, you're winning. You're winning. See, guys, Gaijin just overtook me in Anomaly research rank. Damn, dude. Gaijin's been gaming recently. A whole lot.
Yes. So is this the segue to jump into the larger topic?
Well, now that you've mentioned it,
yes.
You want to hold up a sign? I was trying to make it natural, Gaijin. What have you done?
Sorry.
You smashed my segue with a sledgehammer.
I'm like the old man who makes a joke and says, "No pun intended." Or you see what I did there?
It's like, I thought you were playing Sword and Shield. Turns out you're actually maining Hammer right now. The way that you smashed my segue. You going?
I boosted it. I elevated it on a pedestal. Yeah. Look at this lovely boost.
Look at what Rurikhan did. Look at this natural conversation flow. Not anymore.
Not anymore. Oh my god. You know what? It was probably the discussion of Kotaku, and my brain just wanted to run away from it in the opposite direction. So my brain is like, let's talk about Monster Hunter Endgame.
Oh yeah. But okay.
So yeah,
bring us in.
I guess so. People understand I had not been playing Sunbreak for quite some time, mostly because of my twofold addiction to FF14 and also just general burnout, because I had played so much Monster Hunter over a span of several years that I really burnt myself out. So I was sitting at, I have some notes here. So like on April 20th, I was sitting at Master Rank 56, which I think is respectable, and an Anomaly rank of 23, which means I did like probably 2 or 3 quests.
That's when we did our very first hunt when you came back.
Yeah, we kicked it off with a play between me and Vuri, which was very fun, as it always is. And for basically 11 days, I think it's been since then, I played about 100 hours. So about 11 hours per day I've been playing. I've been grinding the living shit out of this game. So now, after putting in about 100 hours, because of Title Update 5 and some of the changes they've made, I'm now Master Rank 200. So I'm ready for the next update. And my Anomaly rank is 222. So I feel good now where I'm stopping until June. I got to play with a bunch of weapons, make a bunch of sets, and I have a more informed opinion now about the end game and where it stands and my feelings on it, and also what I feel about when it comes to the grind, because I've been very critical about the game, and some of those things are lessons, some are enforced. It's a little bit back and forth, but I thought it might be fun to talk about the entire end game, because this reminds me of like Monster Hunter Iceborne, where I played the game, loved it to death, I was not feeling the grinding lands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't feeling it. It just didn't click for me. It didn't make sense to me. It felt too grindy, and I was like, I can care less about just getting augments. Like, I'm out. But then I came back.
I think that the guiding lands, one of the things about it is that it was a lot more manageable if you were playing with friends, because you could assign different areas of the guiding lands to different friends, and then you would always have a certain area available to you whenever you needed it. So I knew, okay, if I need whatever the swamp area was, I need to go play with my friend Wada. If I need I think Kegrin was doing the Coral Highlands or whatever. So if I need the Coral area, Kegrin comes in. And if they needed like the Ancient Forest, I was doing Ancient Forest and another one, I forget which one it was. But if they needed the Ancient Forest, they came to me. At a certain point, I even remember that G-Rank Rupeku was asking people for the Ancient Forest. And I was like, hey, come in. I got the Ancient Forest. I got you covered. So I feel like that was the team's intention. But a lot of people still play Monster Hunter more as a single-player game. And for those people, that sucked because you would not have access to certain areas unless you were willing to regrind it all over again, which was very frustrating.
Yeah. So I remember coming back to that, like, I think it was 6 months or 9 months or something afterwards, and I really loved it. And I went all the way to, like, Fatalis was what, and Elatron motivated me to do that. And I had a really good time, and I ended up walking away with a generally really good vibe. So I'm really happy that I didn't force it when I wasn't feeling it. And the same thing I think can be said here in some regards. It's a little similar, but in some ways not. But I have some lists. I have a lot of notes here that I want to talk about. Just with the endgame system in general. I will save the overall comments for last because I think there's nuance to them. To just say, well, in the end, I think this. And that. It's like, well, no, there's.
Let's get into the nitty gritty. Yeah.
So one thing that I felt was that the endgame system for this is really a combination of the 4 endgame systems that they've created in the past. They were trying to find a way to fuse them together. And the reason I say that is I'll go through all 4 different ones. So Monster Hunter 4U was really like the first game we had an endgame, right, with the guild quests that would go up. So the guild quests were great. Like you had, a guild quest that you got, and you would level it up, and at certain tiers it would unlock new grades of materials and weapons and stuff that you can get.
Were those also like generated, or were those actual quests that you would get? Were they
generated?
Okay, so the same way that we have investigations, kind of.
Yeah. Yes. Now, the one thing that I hated about that system, there's things I didn't like about it, and I won't go into that, but the one thing I wish they would have had was it only leveled up for the host back then. And they were the ones with the quest, right? It was sort of like the Deviant system, yeah. But the thing is I discovered, and people may not know this, but at least how it is right now in Monster Hunter Sunbreak, if you were to post a quest, and I was a lower level than that quest, I get a copy of it at the end of it.
Yeah, every single time. I don't know
why the game doesn't communicate that, because I don't remember it ever communicating that. That is awesome.
It is important to mention you get a copy of that quest, but not at the same level. You get a copy of that quest at
of course.
Your own appropriate level. So because the reason I say this, guys, it's because sometimes I would have, like, let's say Gaijin was at past 121, and I would just straight up host a 140 quest, because at 121 you can play quests all the way up to 140, and that would just give him like a massive boost. And but it's like, people will say, oh, so Rurikhan boosters, like, no, I might have played with you, like, I don't know, 5-6 quests, something like that. Out of the whole grind, it might have been like 5-6 quests total where I've done this. Everything else, Gaijin was just like grinding solo or multiplayer.
Yeah, I was just out, and I'll get into how that worked, but I mean, there's some changes that they made that possible. But I mean, I guess the way that it works now is like, I wish it was better defined, but like, there's 3 tiers, just like the guild quests, where this level to this level, this is the type of items you're going to get. And then once you break a threshold, like, for example, like an A1 through an A4 monster, right? Like the most basic of basics, they have set materials that they'll give you, just like the guiding lands. But what I really love about this is that the guiding lands only gives you augment materials. you don't really fight those monsters to farm their parts to make armor. But here you can do 2 in one shot.
Yeah.
You can farm the monsters, get materials, and you get the special materials for the augment system. So like the A1 to A4 monsters, like level 1 to 30, there's a set amount of special materials you might gain. And then from 31 to 100, it goes up a grade. I don't think the game does a very good job of communicating that. Especially like, hey, this is now a grade 2 tier. Like, these are the items you're going to get now. I know the info's there. It's just not curated. And then from 101 onward, it's tier 3.
That's why I would always recommend people, hey, keep tabs on Gaudium 17's Twitter. She's got the hookup. She's doing like all of these pretty images with all the materials and all the ranks.
So good.
And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want.
That thing is amazing.
Yeah.
Just put that in the game somehow, and we're all good. And so like there's different tiers, and then as you get up to the higher ones right now, I think the highest is A9 monsters, which is Risen Shaggy and Risen Valstrax, Crimson Grow. And their ones is like 131 to 200, 201 to 240, and then for the very final stuff,
it's 241
to 300, which is the cap. I wish the game would communicate that better, because once I started to really understand that, it started to click a little bit better for me. Like, oh, okay. So I'm literally just hunting for specific items, like to unlock the slots on a weapon. I need this and that. Okay, I'm going to go find this quest, and I don't care what monster it is. The thing that they changed, and I thought this was brilliant, and I didn't realize it was new, is that you can, because I'm playing solo all the time, but online with randos, you can go to the quest board and search for an anomaly quest by material you want.
Yeah. See, that's something.
You can say, hey, I need an Afflicted Bone Plus, and boom, it'll put the range in. It'll put all the monsters specifically to which ones give it. You can even look at it, and it informs you. And you can just jump into a room that gives it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that they've added that with Title Update 5. I'm pretty sure that was what, because I don't remember, whenever I was grinding before, I don't remember ever seeing that. When I noticed that, I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really cool, because now you can literally go up to the smithy and be like, I want this material, and then go up to the quest board and be like, I want this material, and it will just give me a quest. Just give me a quest to go get it.
This made me feel, and this is what made the grind enjoyable for me, because like I used to say, I like the grocery list of like, I want to get this, I want to get that, and there's a clear road to victory that's not RNG dependent. This is it. Like, you may not get all the one, you might not do 2 of them, but in general, this is a grocery list system. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think that the big thing that they could potentially do is like when you're at the blacksmith, right, and you see the materials, some of the materials are not going to be in your list that you can choose because they're higher level. But there's no way in the game for you to know. So like in the game, there should be some type of communication like, oh, by the way, you don't have access to these yet.
Locked, yeah.
They don't even have to tell you what level you get them at.
Unlock. I think that would be even better though. Like if it just said unlock at AR 220, like that'd be
220,
sweet.
Yeah, so, something like that. But if they don't do that, they could just have like, you know how they have on the top right hand corner, raise your master rank to continue whenever they could just say that in the blacksmith, be like, raise your anomaly rank to unlock this material. Maybe they wouldn't even tell you what the material was. It'd just be like, raise your anomaly rank to unlock this material. I mean, it would be better if they would just straight up say, raise your anomaly rank to 221 to unlock this material. But if not, at least just say, raise it. Because otherwise you see, for instance, at this point, we're both at the end, and you'll be like, Risen Slogbone and Risen Elder Thick Blood, whatever it is. And
one is
like,
available at 220 and one's 241.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, these are available at 2 different thresholds. I would never know that that's when the next one becomes available. There's nothing in the game that actually tells you that, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so once again, we'll put the plug. Gaudium017 on Twitter.
Yeah, Gaudium017 on Twitter.
God bless you. So I got 2 more thoughts about the tiering system. One is right now I'm enjoying what they've been doing is they release a tier, then they boost a little bit, not quite up to that tier, but they boost everything to a certain point before that tier. Then they came up with another title update and they boosted this stuff up to another point. And so they always are forcing people who want to be on the frontier of it to really be grinding the hell out of the game to get their rewards for, I don't know, a few months of prestige before it becomes easier, which I guess probably makes some people happy, but the grind is just ridiculous in my opinion that I never wanted to do it. I hated it. So right now they're giving a 400% boost up to the 220, and I feel that this is more of a fix to me. It doesn't feel like a feature. I think where it is right now at 400% feels right. Maybe in the early levels it's a little too fast because you can blow past through 1 to 30 really, really fast, and they can tune that. But in general, I think around 150, because once you get to 100, it's very easy, right? But 100 to 200 is kind of a grind. 200 to 220 is quite a grind. But the thing is, like, the way it is now with the 400% boost, you're getting about 1.3, 1.4 levels worth. If you do a really hard quest, you get about 2 levels worth. That feels right. I think that's how it should have been from the start. And when I was
initially leveling, I remember getting like those hunts that would, for starters, I got one hunt at one point of the progression, which was the most perfect thing. This was on PC. And I had a Pyre, I don't know if it was a Pyre I think it was a Pyre Ragnagadaki because she was like a higher anomaly tier, right? So I had the Pyre Ragnagadaki with one feint, and it was like 25 minutes. It had like these 2 modifiers. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I want. It's not even high risk because for the Gunlance, Pyre Ragnagadaki is giga easy. It's not even a challenge at all. So I'd go in there, and the good thing about Ragnagadaki is that you get a lot of part breaks. And so that generates even more points. So you have all of these fantastic conditions. And even under the most ideal conditions, with the quest at its highest level, there was a point at which that quest was the best quest that you could possibly use, unless you had like maybe a quest similar to that, and that was the request. Because like the request system has also changed drastically. Very drastic.
Oh, interesting.
Because like right now, you're getting request bonuses for every quest you do pretty much. It didn't used to be like that. Because right now, the request system utilizes both the level and a target monster. Whereas before, it used to be just the target monster. And so it's like, even if it was the level and the target monsters. Like right now, it's either or, whereas it used to be an and condition. So it has to be this monster at this level. And that was the only time. So if you were to get like something with the similar modifiers that I had, and it was the request, then you would be able to get a little bit more points than I was getting. But besides that, that quest that I had was the best possible quest I could have had to grind. And at the rate that I was leveling, you want to know how much that was?
How much?
It was about 30% of a level.
Oh, God. Like 700 points?
I don't know how many points it was. I can tell you it was about a third of a level. And I wasn't even like at the last stretch of the grind. I don't remember if the grind ended at 60 or at 80, but at the beginning it ended at like one of those numbers that either ended at 60 or ended at 80. And I was probably around, if it ended at 60, then I was at 40. And if it ended at 80, I was at 60. But I was like, I remember I was about 20 levels from hitting the cap. And it was 1/3 of a level per kill on this high risk quest. With all of the stuff, with me breaking every single bone in this Ragnagadakis body.
I mean, especially coming from FF14, like I could see this is a system that's generally applied to a games as a service model, a subscription service, right? You want to have people playing a lot. So it's like FF14 in a way where like you have to do savages with no minimum eye level. It's a pain in the butt. Like right now, people who are doing 241 to 300, that's a hard grind. And as a reward, they're getting access to a few decorations and some stuff that you normally can't get, like attack ones or something. That makes total sense in a live service game because you want the hardcore players to get things earlier so that they can take on the higher challenges, to get the things that are really shiny, that they can show off and feel good about. And then you have a catch-up mechanic where like, okay, in the next patch, we're going to make it a little bit easier for everybody to get to one tier prior to that. And then we're going to unlock one new tier that's really hard to grind. So the thing is like Monster Hunter's not... I don't know what I know that the directors from Frontier and probably a lot of the development staff as well, but it's like I don't agree with the idea that Sunbreak should be designed as for game retention, like playing every day. Like I just don't think that's the right move personally.
And see how that that is the idea that I tried to posit to you in the last podcast, where I said, see, what this incentivizes is for people to basically just skip all of the title updates until you get to the end.
Come back into the end.
I mean, because this is not a subscription-based service, you can also just like, oh, there's a new update coming out. Let me grind out the stuff that came out on the previous update because it's easier now. And then you're like, okay, but I'm not going to grind the stuff that actually came out in this update. I'm going to wait for the next update. And then I grind. So you wait for title update 2 to grind title update 1. Then you wait for title update 3 to grind title. And because it is unpleasant. And I understand there's a lot of really hardcore players in our communities, because I see a lot of people just saying, look, you guys don't want to play the end game. Nobody's forcing you. You don't have to. I love this. And I'm just like, see, the issue there is like, I think that would be okay, but what bothers me is I don't get to actually do the most challenging content. I've never been able to, and it's very frustrating because
this is why we need an online game for Monster Hunter. I mean, Frontier obviously didn't work overseas. I don't even think they even released it overseas, and it was built on a really old tech.
Yeah,
but like, it would be nice
There's
to have an
clearly a
online
desire
Monster Hunter
for it,
game.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be good, especially for streamers. It would be pretty sweet to watch and see some of the stuff that you can do. Would be awesome.
Because the thing to me is, ever since they started this Anomaly system, I've always been on this quest, and I've talked about it often, which is like the cursed quest. I want to go and like reach Cap, and I want to find the most difficult quest that you can possibly imagine. And it's just like, I haven't been able to hit the Cap ever. I've never hit the Cap because it is way too grinding. And an interesting thing is, a lot of people are like, come on, Rurikhan, you do this for a living. You should. It's like, listen, I don't sit at the office and play Monster Hunter all day. Like, if I was to do that, you wouldn't see videos like this. You wouldn't see any of the videos go up on the channel because I'd be sitting at the office playing Monster Hunter all day. What people don't understand, I actually end up playing less than a lot of people play video games because I'm usually focused on creating content, figuring out, okay, what's the next video I'm going to work on, all of these things. But while I have a lot of time to grind, people think like, why don't you just stream it? It's like, because it's not the most entertaining thing to see or even the most entertaining thing to comment on, me murdering a Rurikhan Gaijin 100 times in a row. Like, nobody actually wants to watch that. You think you do. Let me tell you, you don't. And I don't want to. I don't want to commentate it either. It's like, hey guys, here we go. Attempt number, not even attempt. It's like run number 150 of this poor Rurikhan Gaijin that's sitting in a corner with PTSD at this point. Because here comes the big mean Gunlance, man, to break every friggin' bone in my body again for 1/3 of a level in his Anomaly research rank. Like, this is not necessarily entertaining content.
Yes, I would say that for the tiering, to bring it back to a positive note, I am happy that they're boosting it, and it is a really good time, I think, right now to try to grind up to 220.
Yeah.
The 400% feels right. It doesn't feel like cheating. There are newbie gains.
You should go to 221 because that's where the threshold unlocks. The thresholds always go on the one above the thing. Yeah, but
so it is 221. But the 400 boost feels right. There's newbie gains in the beginning that makes it feel unfair. Like, wow, man, how did I gain so many levels? Like, I just gained 30 levels. What the hell? But once you start getting into the hundreds, it starts to feel, back down to earth. Like 1 a level or 1.5 hunts a level feels right. Especially when you're going to the levels such as 200s and stuff. I think that's fair. So I love what they did with the boost, and I don't know how it is on the console versions. I don't know if you know. Like, if they've added that boost, they probably didn't because this feels very designed.
Oh, you mean on the PlayStation and Xbox versions?
I'm assuming they don't get.
I mean, they're on Title Update 3, so they would get the boost for all of the content up to Title Update 2, I would imagine. 2,
so. Yeah. A shame. I mean, June's just around the corner, so if I was on that system, I actually would not feel bad about just playing it to the end game and then just stop playing until June and when you get Title Update 5, because that will be a much more enjoyable experience, in my opinion. If you want to go for it.
At the end of the day, it's one of those things. If you're having fun, keep at it, keep grinding, enjoy it. We're not telling you not to play the game. I want to make that perfectly clear. As long as you're having fun, do it. What we are saying, though, is if you get to that end game and you begin to feel that burnout, and you're like, oh my god, like I said, I was getting like 1/3 of a level. It's like if you get to that point where you're just like, oh my god, this is taking way too long to level. Stop, wait for June, play later, like that, because that way you don't burn out. You carry on that freshness that you have for the game. You can play something else in between, and then you come back and you play it, and you're much more refreshed. And this is one of the reasons why I haven't gone past like 221 that much, is because like the only times I've played was when I was playing with Gaijin, because that's fun. But grinding by myself, I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna. I really want to. I want to do those special investigations with the really high modifiers and all of that stuff, but it's too many hours. It's just too much.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to add, just because we're talking about the tier system, and I think to me this is intertwined, before I go to the other 3 points, which is, we were talking a lot in depth, and I won't go through it too much here, about our thoughts on the upgrading armor and how, you might have a huge stock of spheres, but if you play with multiple sets and experiment, you're going to run out of both that and Zenny pretty fast. Zenny has lots of ways to get it. Armor spheres, not so much. Like, yes, you can eat for Summoner, which will bring all the rock lizards, and you can go on a rock lizard, get 24 drops, and with about 2 hours, you'll get enough to fully upgrade one set, but that's a lot of grind. The thing is
it's too much.
You know what, I think there's a really elegant solution here that they missed, which is if you tell me my armor is level 1 out of 29, my immediately thought is I want to get it to 29. This is my main set right now.
Yeah.
The thing is that these levels were actually tied to the damage that was being dealt by the level of cap of the Anomaly monsters that they were given upgrades to each one. So when they raised the level cap, what they were doing was raising the defense level cap to be more appropriate for that new tier of monsters in the Anomaly levels. What they should have done, I think, is, for example, let's say, you upgrade your armor to max for Master Rank Endgame, right? At that point, they add in A1 monsters or A2 monsters. You know how they have like that one material that you, like for upgrading the slots in the weapon, right? Where it's a material that you can only get at Anomaly level 31. Just have one of those. Just put one of those on the unlock requirement to then increase your armor by another, what is it?
So what you're saying
5
is
levels?
you should have tied the armor level to the
because it is
research
tied,
rank.
But they didn't. Yeah, but
it's like the problem is
it is tied though.
The problem is that there's already too much that is tied to Anomaly research rank. I think the biggest problem that we actually have in the game is the fact that you have 2 ranks. You have to raise 2 ranks. It's too much. It's like you have.
I agree, but
your master rank and you have your Anomaly research rank. And it's like, no, there needs to be 1 rank. Like there's 1 rank. Make it go up slower. Okay, make it so that it's harder. If people want to get to 999, it's going to take you longer. It is what it is. But it's like, have one thing that you're working towards, because then you're, because like you also get into a situation where both of us were, because I came back to the Switch and you came back to the Switch as well. And both of us were in this situation where it's like, I can't even fight the latest monsters in the game because I need to raise my master rank. But I also need to raise the Anomaly research rank. And doing Anomaly research is not the best way to raise the master rank. And doing master rank has no impact on Anomaly research. And you're just like, you're constantly divided by, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. I don't know. You're getting pulled in all kinds of different directions. That's the way that I feel.
Yeah, I agree. That doesn't feel as well planned out. But I think the armor system would have been less frustrating for me if they would have tied it to... Like, even then you could do a catch-up mechanic, right? Like, imagine there is the, let's say the A6 upgrade for your armor would be from, like, level 71, you unlock it, or 111 or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. You unlock 2 levels. Like, maybe they could have a catch-up system where if you have an armor piece you just made, and you've got a material from an A6 hunt, you can use that to just jump to that level of defense. Like, there's other ways they could have made it just nicer, I think. Because right now, I got really frustrated with wanting to get my armor upgraded at least halfway, but with the amount of weapons and sets that we use, unless I'm going on 10-hour grinds on rock lizards, the optional quests cannot keep up. And all the, getting 5 or 6 king spheres a hunt is not enough for me to keep up multiple sets. It's just not. So I think my frustration was more at everyone's like, well, you don't need that much. Well, how would you know that? The game doesn't really communicate to you what is a good defense to have at this level. It doesn't really tell you.
I feel like a lot of the players who kept playing the game and kept like, grinding, they're like, hey, this seems like a you problem. I have a million armor spheres, so this is clearly a you problem. And it's like, well, no, because it's like you're eventually going to run out too. You've just probably been playing with the same set, and that's that, because if you go into upgrade a couple of more sets, you're going to completely run out of spheres.
Yeah, well, also those who have been putting in, several hundred hours throughout all of this, of course they're going to have a lot. So I think that's more of a kudos to them than a dig on us, that they have so many. I mean, like, yeah, but I don't know, it's just a random thought I had with the tiering system. Because like you said, there's a lot of mismatches, right? Like I was farming and fighting Risen Shagaru, but I couldn't make it set because the set required me to have I had to get the master rank to get the special gem that they give you for that quest. But I can't fight it in master rank. I have to fight it in Anomaly, and it's just like...
So wait, but you get the Rise gems in Anomaly.
Only at a certain level. At an earlier level, when you first unlock it, you don't get them. And so I had to raise my master rank to get those. And then after I was grinding more and more of the Anomaly, then I started getting them as well. And I'm
I think that's
it's weird.
So you're fighting Risen Shigaru, and there's no chance of him dropping a gem.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
That is very
anyway,
weird.
that's in that long section, that's how I compared it to the 4U endgame system. So I'll move on to Mechanic 2, where I think they took the system of Generations Ultimate, which was Hyper Monsters, which is a fantastic idea. I love the idea that you have a monster and a certain part of its body, because a lot of people just hit the monster wherever until it dies, right? And for most of us who love the beautiful game a little bit more, we care about
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, when you have a weapon that can ignore weak spots.
Whenever my weapon makes explosions, then the damage number is yellow. This is good, yes? There's yellow damage number. This is good. It makes brain chemicals go very nice. Yes. The yellow damage number everywhere is very nice. No, I do. In all honesty, I do shoot for the Qurious spots. I do aim for them so that I can. You get huge damage bursts if you go.
Yeah.
For that.
So the things that I loved about the Hyper system, which is by far my favorite endgame system and the one that I engaged with the most, people would argue that it wasn't the endgame and that it was just it was more like tempered, where the actual endgame was the deviants. But to me, Hyper was the endgame because that's where I spent all my time. The reason why I loved the Hyper system was there would be very limited, like 2 spots on a monster, right? So let's say you're going up against a Mizutsune.
But before we go for that, I just want to make it very clear to people what is the Hyper system, because some people are going to be like, "What?"
Yeah, that's what
some
I was.
People haven't played. You're going to. Oh, okay. You're going to explain. I'm sorry. Keep going then.
Yeah. So the Hyper system was you'd have a monster that had, I think it had generally the same or more health, but the big difference of it was like 1 or 2 body parts on that monster would be glowing at any given time. So let's say you're going up against a Mizutsune and its teeth and its tail were glowing. Like you would actually see like a yellow glow on it. What that meant was...
Pretty sure it was red.
Maybe it was red. I don't know. I'm probably thinking yellow because that was the gauge buildup. But the idea was, let's say, if its tail is glowing, that tail is both a high risk, high opportunity thing, because the attacks from the tail would do like 1.5 times damage, if not double damage, like a lot of damage because it was powered up. But if you hit that spot, you wouldn't get extra damage. Like it wouldn't, otherwise it becomes like hit that spot or spend 50 minutes killing the monster, which is the problem we're going to talk about. But for that, it gave you gauge to do special attacks, and you could still whiff on your special attacks easily. So it was just giving you the opportunity to exploit your expertise at the weapon. So you were able to get it's like, imagine if it was a wire bug and you hit the tail, which was dangerous to be near, and it would like increase your recovery for that, so you could do another skill. That was the trade-off, but they hit really hard. Like if you had a Silver Rathalos with a glowing mouth, and he hit you with a fireball, you're dead. It's a one-shot.
Yep.
Like, because that's his strongest
I've experienced
attack,
that
and he's powered
times.
up. I know. So the hyper system I loved because not only was it high risk, high reward, you didn't get a faster kill time necessarily by hitting those parts, unless you were really good at using those extra hunter arts to do more damage. So if you were really skilled, it was a way to make the hunts faster and more dynamic, but it wasn't forced on people like a clutch claw or something like that, where like do it or experience 10 minutes longer hunts, you know? So it was more of a incentivized thing than a prerequisite. And the cool thing about the hyper monsters is that they gave you hyper parts in the same way that the augments do for this game, for Sunbreak. But those were made to make new armor.
New armor sets, yeah.
Every monster had an R series or a ZR series, which was a set that was not meant to be worn as a full set, but it was meant to be like mixing pieces. And it was taking the extreme of that monster, both its weakness and its strength, and just exploiting it. So like the feline weapons, the prowler weapons were great because you'd have like the normal monster would be like, let's say like solid attack, solid element. And the hyper version for Mizutsune would be like super high element, lower attack, and stuff like that. So you'd have all these variations born out of this R system, which I thought was fantastic. Of course, it was easier because, you know, making armor was less fidelity. It was back on 3DS and all that stuff. But that's the type of endgame system I love the most.
But see, I think that right there, that just, I'm sorry to cut you up there, but it's like,
yeah.
That right there really just shows something that I really loved about GU and that I loved about World. And that is something that I haven't been able to enjoy almost that much ever since they introduced the Anomaly system, which is like you would do these things and then you would work towards a specific mix set. You're like, oh, I want this piece from him, that piece from him, because it would matter, because the armor meant something. Because, there was actually, here's this armor that has these skills, and you can make all these crazy sets, and you can mix together with deviant armor and do all, and you would have
and you
to.
Could
if
only
you wanted
have
to get
6 or 7 skills, and each one mattered.
But you had to even mix it with deviant armor and other types of armor that you would have in the game in order to reach certain skill thresholds. And it felt fun to actually plan out those sets. It's like, oh, I want this thing. And that, I feel, is where Rise really fumbles it, where it's like, it doesn't feel fun if every piece of armor can be anything that you goddamn want. Because anything can be on anything.
I mean, that's a problem to be fair, that's also a criticism I have on World and Iceborne as well. If skills are easy to pop onto a set, then they matter less.
There were quite a few sets that did have that, but I pushed this a little bit off the rails there. Go back into the hyper.
Okay, so that explains the hyper system, I think, right? So right now, the way that they've taken the essence of that and they've applied it to this game is that the Anomaly monsters have more than one, like 3-4 spots at a time that are glowing red when they're in that state. And hitting those red parts, and the particle effects are so heavy that it just feels like a beat down when you have 4 players. Like it just feels like, okay, let's just like beat him down, right? And then he blows up. But the thing is if you hit those spots as they're glowing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they do increased damage or anything. I think they're just like, hey, bonus zone right here, hit me. And when you hit it, it doesn't give you the ability to do more skills. It just blows up and does massive, like 2,000 damage.
I mean, it doesn't instantly blow up. There's damage thresholds, but once you do a certain amount of damage, it'll blow up for thousands of damage,
But because it's so significant amount of damage, it basically is the same as Clutch Claw, where it's like, you don't have to. But if you don't, you're going to be in for quite a long hunt because
you have to pop those.
We've really buffed up and inflated their life points and stuff.
And not only that, but if you don't hit those, eventually the monster goes into overload and does that big AoE explosion with the swirlies. And that has just like tremendous amounts of stun potential whenever it comes to that stuff. So if you get hit by one of those, you get stunned like 90% of the times unless you have full-on stun resist.
Yeah, so I like that they tried to take the idea from the hyper system, but I don't like that they tied it to damage, because I think it's kind of clutch clawy, maybe not as offensive, but it shouldn't be a guaranteed like totally big bonus where it's like, okay, you are going to do that or you are going to suffer.
Here's what you got to do: just play Greatsword.
Yeah,
And it doesn't matter because, like, who cares about dealing 2,000 damage for popping a Curio when I can hit the monster for twice that amount? Nobody cares. Just play Great Sword. Or play Light Bowgun, which I hear is also doing really well or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I like monsters feeling dangerous, you know? Like,
yes!
when you had a hyper monster, people are like, oh, or like, let's say the Silver Rathalos, right? Like, oh shit.
Yeah, dude,
Its face is glowing. Stay the hell away from its face.
Dude, Silver Los, I specifically remember like going in with me, Kegrin, and Wada. So you're talking about hunters that know what they're doing. We're not talking about like a team of randos that you grabbed online that are picking up the game for the first time. Wada, and Kegrin would go into Silver Los quests in GU, and we would not know if we were coming out of there with the parts. Okay?
Alive.
We didn't know if we were going to survive.
But the game was telegraphed. It was telling you exactly what it was going to do. It's just because it was so punishing and positioning was so harder back then that you really had to be on top of your game.
And it was so fun, dude. Now I'm reminding myself of like the way that we would play back then. It was so wild.
Like if y'all want to cry, go to Generations Ultimate, do the simultaneous Silver Rathalos and Golden Rathian quest for the Destroyer Oil or whatever. Like that quest was hard as balls. I don't know if I've
done that. I might have, but yeah, but
it's
the way that we'd go at it, like I for starters, there were just straight up some quests where I could not play Gunlance. It was just like, forget about it. You can't do it. I'd have to go in with Sword and Shield, and even with Sword and Shield, I'd have to go like freaking Adept style to be able to survive. Because it was that much. But then we had like Wada. This is just something that I get reminded of. It was so funny. Wada would constantly do the alchemy fireball, which doesn't deal that much damage. It doesn't do that much. But
it's fun though.
But we'd be like fighting Silver Rathalos, and then comes Wada with his barrel, and he's just like, fireball! And he would bring down Rathalos from the sky with a fireball from his barrel. Oh, that was so epic, dude. That was good times, man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on the Anomaly, whatever you want to call it, glowy parts.
The Qurious system, whatever that they put on it. Yeah, the Anomaly Qurious Hyper something. EX plus Alpha.
So the third system, which I think they applied, was for Monster Hunter World, which was the tempered system, which was the idea that, you know, having quests with randomized harder conditions could pump out higher rewards. Now, where I didn't like the tempered system was that it made getting rare materials like so much more easier that regular quests were stupid to do. Like, why would you ever do a quest from the quest board if you could do a tempered investigate? It would make no sense.
That's still one of the most watched videos in my channel, is me just like, don't repeat optional quests. That's it. It's one of the most watched videos in the channel, where I just made a video and I was like, guys, don't do optional quests. Don't repeat them. Just don't do it.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I love the idea of having, and tying it to points I think was a smarter idea. I thought that was cool. I wish they would have colored them differently, like what is a positive modifier and what's a negative one. I wish they did like blue and red or something.
Yeah.
So that it was a little bit more obvious. But they give you good transparency at the end of the hunt. Like if you look at your actual results, they tell you exactly what you got for each one.
I think it's also fairly easy to understand, since I think the only positive one is the carts, right? It's like, oh, you have 5 carts for this quest. You can instantly tell, okay, that's a positive modifier, so that's not good.
That's true, yeah. I wish you could search for quest by modifier. Like, I want a quest that's 25-minute limited. You know, I want a quest that is 2 people. Well, you can do 2 people only now. But you can't search for all the conditions, which would be kind of nice. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way that they implemented the tempered system with conditions. I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on?
I think so, too. I think that the way that they've done it, where whenever there's enough negative conditions, you basically get bonus to your points. I think it makes perfect sense because it reinforces the whole sense of high risk, high reward, which is overall just a better experience. I know that a lot of players don't like, because a lot of people tell me this during my streams, like, oh, I delete all of my quests that have only 1 feint. And I'm just like, I don't know why. I want all the one faint quests. It's like if
I
I die,
love those.
I die, but it's high risk, high reward. You gotta, it
But
is
it's
what it is.
also like when you come back for a quest and it says today's special is Bury Safe, which is the insurance, you're like, okay, it's time to dig into that hard ass quest. Let's
Listen,
do it.
There's only
It's one way to look at it.
There's
Okay,
only one buff
Chad.
that you need, okay? There's only one buff that you need, and unfortunately,
Bird
it's
collar.
not a 100% buff, and that is Bombardier.
Guts?
That's the only
Moxie?
buff that you
Oh,
All you need is Dongo Bombardier, baby. That's all
Oh,
you
Lord.
need, and you know it.
we already talked about the last one, which was I thought Iceborne. One of the mechanics they took from that was the idea of these special monsters, which was the guiding lands, giving parts that were used then to augment your weapon and gear. And again, I think it was great because it wasn't just headbanging you to actually get materials to craft the armor. So I was pretty happy with that. And we already talked about the issue though of having access to a monster before you have access in master rank, which is kind of funny.
The weapon augmentation, the Qurious weapon crafting, that I like because it's again, it is not RNG. It is predictable. You want this
Super
upgrade,
clear.
you target this upgrade, you get this upgrade. I love that, and that's what I want to see more of in Monster Hunter.
Yeah,
I
the
want to see
weapon
more
system,
systems
I loved it.
like weapon crafting, and I want to see less systems like the armor crafting. because
Curious crafting, yeah,
that-
I'm
that's
not a fan.
That's the one of the biggest selling points for Monster Hunter for me, and it's one of the things that I always bring up when people tell me, why do you play so much Monster Hunter? And it's like, look, because I've played so much goddamn World of Warcraft and Diablo and all of these games that have random loot, that whenever there's a game that respects my time and I can specifically target the thing that I want, and maybe I won't get it every time, but I can try again until I get it, like, that's what I want. But when you give me something that's like, hey, maybe you'll get powder mantle, maybe you'll get speed eating, is like, no, these two things should
Yesterday-
not even be remotely in the same pool of skills.
The other day, I was trying to get wind mantle on one of my pieces, and
It's
I
actually
did
not
over
that hard.
I did over 200 augmentations, and I didn't get it. I'm not joking. 200. I counted because I was getting so upset.
Yeah, see,
And
guys,
I'm like,
this,
I should
this is the
have save
problem.
scummed it.
And no, you can't anymore. They
Oh,
did
no.
something,
Yeah,
at least
you
on
can on
this-
Switch.
I mean,
You can.
maybe if you send your save to the cloud and then exit.
Exactly.
then-
That's what I'm
yeah.
talking about. That's how you save scum it.
Yeah,
But I wasn't gonna do
you
that.
used to be able to just like exit out.
Oh, now it auto
So you'd
saves, yeah.
meld and then you would exit out, and you can't do that anymore. You have to like do it from the cloud and all that.
Backups.
But yeah, it's like, to me, whenever you get to a point in the video game, and I think that a lot of people probably save scum for the Qurious armor crafting, which is probably why they don't mind. But it's like, to me, from the moment that your game incentivizes save scumming, you failed something. Unless it's like, let's say it's a story game and you're save scumming because you want to see different outcomes.
He's talking about
That's a
the
different
development design, not the players. You guys have a feel, like,
yeah. I feel like
you're
the
being pushed to it, I think.
yeah, the development of the game has made a mistake because players feel like, oh, this is not a good use of my resources and or time, therefore I'm going to use an alternate. I mean, at that point, if you're save scumming, why save scum at all? Just like if you're on PC, just like, change your save, do whatever, just mod your save file, because it's the same thing. You're basically manipulating the game systems to get your desired outcome.
Hey man,
So it's the same
I
thing
will
as
just
modding
say,
it.
way back in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, what we used to do, I'm sure you've done it as well, which was people figured out the tables and what actions and how many
no,
seconds
I never did that.
I did. The sniping, and I spent many an hour doing this, where you would figure out where you are in the table. You'd figure out, okay, I don't want to do any actions. I don't want to do any steps. I'm going to start my game, and you have to frame perfect hit the button to get it. But you could snipe a specific charm, and it was an art. And it's just because it was so random that people had to do that. So there was timers and stuff we used.
That's where I think that you start failing, especially when it's because of a random nature, which is, I think that video games should, for the most part, reward a player's skill. Like, if you're good enough at doing something, you should be able to be rewarded for it. Like, an excellent example in Monster Hunter is, for instance, tail chopping. You want to get a tail part? Cut the tail. It requires a certain amount of skill to cut the tail. Not every weapon can cut the tail, which kind of sucks for hammer users and doot users, even though doot users do get some slashing damage.
No, dudes can cut now.
Yeah, but it's like, it sucks for hammer users, but it's like, hey, look, if you get a friend. Like I have a friend of mine who at one point asked me,
Well,
hey,
now you can just get the followers, and they'll help you out. I don't think you can. I don't think you can tell them like, please focus on tail.
No, I think you're gonna have a hard time if you're gonna have the followers try to chop the tail. That'll be rough. But no, wait, actually, no. I've seen the Gallius, the Admiral. He chops tails. I've had him in my team quite a few times, and he's chopped the tail. So actually, no, you might be able to have some success with the Admiral, but probably not at high Anomaly ranks. That's probably going to be Struggle City.
Oh yeah.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. You reward player skill as opposed to being random. There's still a degree of randomness to it, right? Because you can cut the tail, and instead of getting the tail material, you get a gem.
Yeah.
It's better than what you were hoping for, but you still didn't get what you wanted. You can also cut the tail and you can get a shell. So it's like, there's still an RNG element to it, but there's a much bigger degree of control. I think it's like probably 60% chance or 80% chance if you're getting a tail material if you chop the tail. So it's like, that's what I want to see more of. I don't want to see randomness coming in. I want less randomness, more skill-based things so that you can target the things that you want.
Yeah.
That's what I want out of Monster
one
Hunter.
thing, we won't go into our feelings about being able to add on an entire set's worth of skills just through augmentation and stuff like that, because that it is what it is, right? That's the game. Having 50 skills active is a thing because it's basically Frontier, and we don't like that. We know that, but I would say at the end of the day, the systems like augmenting your weapon, fantastic, love it. The idea of the other, like even the charm thing, they added in title updated. They added in a new type of Qurious talisman melding where you can target a skill and get very decent ones every time. Very decent ones. I think that's great.
That's something that I feel like I probably haven't
should do that for the armor.
I probably haven't talked enough about that, but I feel like the new charm generation is actually one of the better things that they've done for what is essentially an RNG system, because I feel like whereas the previous charms that I was generating for the most part, they felt like a waste of time. Even the targeted ones with like Title Update 4 or Title Update 3, whatever.
Yeah, you might not get them already.
That was a complete waste of time. Everything up until Title Update 5, when it came to charm melding, was a complete waste of time. And now there's a system that I don't think is a complete waste of time.
Yeah,
because
it's really
even
good.
if you don't get a god tier roll, you can get some really good rolls.
They are all really
easily.
good.
Yeah.
The tables are very well manipulated, and it only costs, Anomaly parts. So the more time you put in, the more you can get. So it's not a cheap method unless you've been playing for a long time. It is quite expensive. Like I had to do some Curious crafting just to get the fodder, but it's worth it, and you can really aim for a set. So for that, I liked. If anything, I wish they would just add that to the armor now and just say, hey, if I'm going to augment my armor, let me target a skill. At this point, we're all gods anyways in the game. Like, I didn't have trouble with any of these monsters. You may as well, because there's just too much. At the end of the day, what I'm feeling, though, is like with the weapon upgrades, it's great, but with the armor upgrades is the one thing I don't like, and it makes it feel like you're basically playing to do a slot machine. Yeah, and they really fixed it with the charms. I think that was fantastic. So they just need to fix the armor, and I'll be like, okay, I may not be into this type of system, but it's good.
That was actually the reason why for the longest time, whenever I would stream, I would actually save the Qurious armor rolls for the end, because I knew that by the time I was done, I wouldn't feel like playing the game, which is always the case. Like every single time that I go in there and I start rolling, like I know that by the time I'm done and all the materials are gone, I'm just like, yeah, time to take a break. Time to go play something else, because, it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and that's my thoughts basically on the end game. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about your feelings on it, but that's how I feel about it, and now I understand it more. I can appreciate the parts of it that are really good. I do want to say I think it's nice that they try something different every game, because they haven't figured out the end game system, but they're trying, right? And they're trying out different things, so eventually they'll nail it, hopefully in the next game. So I'll give them props for that as well. Instead of trying to force it down our throat, they're trying to change it up.
Yeah, like I still enjoyed what I have engaged with the system, but at the same time, it was also very frustrating because, like I said, I want to get to the cap, but I feel like the grind is way too high, and they keep shifting the goalposts. Because like, well, I'm almost at the 80 cap or whatever it was. Now it's 120, and I was like, okay. So you grind up. I'm like, oh, I'm almost at 100. Now it's 200. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And then I grind. I think I was like at 160 in the last time, and they're like, and now it's 220, and I was like, bro.
Yeah. So I think actually, oh God, I have so many notes I want to go through.
Keep going.
I was gonna ask, do you know what you get from the? I know the level 300 hunts. I've been watching a few of them on YouTube, and it's pretty cool because they actually change the monsters. Like the proximity of their AoEs go much further than they normally do, and stuff like that. They actually change some of the mechanics. But do you know what? Is there any special reward for doing a level 300 anomaly quest?
Badge. A badge, but like not a visual badge, like one of those, when you complete something and you get like a badge of something. For the completionism thing. It's like a trophy.
Yeah, like right now I have like an Amatsu icon on my name. Is it that?
I don't know
when
if
you
it's
see my
one
hunter
for
name
your
above my head, it's got
name.
that little icon.
It might be that. It's just like, that thing in your guild card that has like badges that you collect as you play through it.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those.
Okay, because I'm curious. Maybe it is this way or not, but I think what would be cool is if to incentivize people to go all the way to 300 is if you beat a level 300 monster, they have that little icon next to your name, right? Like right now I have Amatsu because it's a cute little icon of its head. And some people have like the helmet or whatever. It'd be nice if you unlock the monster icon for that monster that you killed in the 300 quest. So you can have like a Kazoo or a Bishaten. Like that would be awesome. I think that would be really fun. I don't know if they do that, but if they don't, they should. But I would just, I don't feel there's much encouragement right now, but that's fine.
I mean, that's the thing. The encouragement to me when it comes to the anomaly thing and getting to the top, the encouragement has always been, okay, if I get to the top, I get to fight the hardest thing. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, it takes too long and I'm not willing to put in the grinds. It's like...
Yeah. Before I go into some other miscellaneous notes, I was going to say the next final monster they're adding, the what would you call it, a variant on Malzeno?
Blue Xeno.
Yeah. What do you think they're going to tie that to? Do you think it's going to be Master Rank 200 or do you think they're going to tie it to Anomaly rank?
I think it's going to be Master Rank 200.
I hope so. If they dare to go and say it's going to be Anomaly rank 300, I'll be pissed. I did get myself up to 200
I don't
Master
think that
rank,
makes
and
sense.
I hope. Yeah. So fingers crossed. I got myself to 200 so that I can enjoy it when it comes out, hopefully. But talking about Master rank, actually, this is interesting. So I started out at Master rank 56, and my goal is to get to 200, which I did. Took a lot of hunts. I think there's still a problem with the scalability for people who are not playing this game constantly. I think getting up to Master... I've talked about this in detail. Getting up to Master Rank 100 is not a problem. Getting beyond that, though, becomes a slog. And I think I ended up doing that Gormagala quest like 60 times. Basically time attacking. The thing is, you get 2,400 points from that quest, right? And I think... And that's about... once you're above level 100, that's about like one rank per quest. So like if you want to get to Master Rank 100 to 200, you have to do 100 quests. That feels right. But the thing is all the other quests are like 1,400 or 1,500 points. I think it's too low. I think every Master Rank outside of the beginning monster should be around 2,000, 2,500. I think that's the sweet spot. So me having to grind an event quest to make it more manageable, People say, well, yeah, you did it over the course of a week and a half. I'm like, yeah, but I also put 100 hours in. Like that's not a small, insignificant amount of change. So I wish Master Rank quests outside the event ones actually paid out decent. Instead of giving us, like a Master Rank event quest that fixes a problem. Like, here's all the Zenny, because there's that quest with Zenny. It's ridiculous. You get a ton.
I think
then there's the quest that gives you lots of MRP. It's like, why don't you just adjust the game so that we're no longer, because other you're only going to do that quest.
There's a different solution to it, and it involves we were talking about the philosophy that some of these systems appear to be brought in from, from live service games. And it's like, if you're bringing this in from live service games, and if that's kind of like the direction, because let's just face it, Anomaly Research Rank definitely feels like a live service element. We can have a discussion about how we feel about that and all of that, but it definitely feels like a live service element that was brought into the game. And it's like, if you're doing that, there is another live service element that you can bring into the game, which is Rested XP.
Yeah.
You haven't played for, I don't know, let's say it kicks in at a certain point in time. I don't know exactly when it should kick in, but there should be like some condition, like, hey, maybe you played a certain amount of hours for this update or whatever, which is, they would say that's not that much. So here's a bonus XP for your next 50 hunts or something like that.
Yeah.
And for the next 50 hunts, you just get like chunks of master rank. And, because if we are bringing in these systems that implement some type of live service, then you want to bring some quality of life as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because like if you're going to have everybody chase up to master rank 200, you have to give them a way to catch up a little bit better, right? So they can play it. And so far, it just feels like it's the lazy solution of, okay, we'll add an event quest that pays out a crap ton, and there, we're done. Yeah, but it's like, I don't, you only end up doing that thing over and over again. Because it's like, why would I engage with master rank at that point? Because at this point, anomalies give me both the anomaly ranks, they give me monster parts. The only thing they don't give me is master rank points. And master rank points, I could do normal quests.
They do give you master rank points. They don't give you that much.
They do, but not much.
I mean, that was one of the reasons why when I came back to the Switch, what I was doing most of the time was I was doing 3 monster quests.
Yeah.
In the Anomaly.
So anyway, I think monster rank, I think they should find a way to help give a more catch-up method. But I used Magala because it was the best and the fastest. Basically killing him in 4 minutes every time and getting 1 level. So I did about 60 times.
Jesus Christ.
It was just a way for me to speed run my sets and try things out. Which is funny is the thing I ended up using on him the most was bow. Of all things, spread bow.
Well, yeah, because bow is busted. As most of the ranged weapons tend to be.
Yeah. Title Update 5 also had Shockproof, new decoration, which I think should be the staple going forward in the franchise. Get rid of Flinch free, have Shockproof, call it a day. That thing is perfect. So the difference, I mean, maybe you can educate me, but to me, what I understand is when you have Flinch free, if you are put to sleep, if you need to get knocked out of something, you don't. It's a demerit.
Yeah,
it's like instead of getting knocked around by your teammates and not being able to hunt at all, your punishment is that you're screwed if you need to get hit. Shockproof solves that. It says you're not going to get hit by your enemy friendly fire, but if you get knocked out of a status, you can get knocked out of it. If my understanding is correct.
I don't know. I haven't tested that. I haven't tested that particular functionality. I usually just use it to prevent blasting people with bullet barrage. But to be honest, I also feel like I don't know. I haven't even been a big fan of Flinch free. It's like I understand.
Yeah, I mean there was an art with friendly fire, right? With taking positions and stuff. I understand that.
It's
unless you play Lance, then everyone else can just screw themselves.
Yeah, but I think
Lance
that Lance
trips at anything.
Yeah, I think that Lance, they should just like fix that aspect of it, because like literally anything, even sneezing in the general direction of a Lance, like I'm staggered. Oh, I'm staggered. Oh, again. But I just feel that there's a certain amount of convenience that you would want, and there's a certain amount where it just feels like, okay, maybe this is too much. And we are getting to that point where everything is almost becoming like an MMO. It's about uptime. There's like, we use Flinch free because it's more optimal, because it's more uptime.
Just hit the
Everybody
head. That's all we
hits
do.
the head because it's got the best modifiers. And it's like, I think that it was cool when in previous Monster Hunter games you had to be somewhat careful with the way that you played so that you wouldn't screw other people around. Like an interesting thing was Wada at one point in Generations Ultimate kept getting launched, and we couldn't figure out why. We were like, why? Why are you getting launched? And it turns out...
Can I guess what it is? Can I guess?
Go for it.
Sword and Shield, the Hunter rank 3.
It's not the spin. I mean, the spin also did that, and every now and then we use that intentionally, but it was the shield bash. The shield bash would send him flying.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
So I'd be going for shield bashes, boom, 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 and he sent flying, and he's like, what are you doing? I told you not to equip the level 3 one. And I was like, I'm not. I have the level 2. I wasn't even using the Hunter art. What do you mean? So it actually took us a while to figure out what was going on, but I think that those are moments that are interesting. And I know that a lot of people are like, it's just inconvenient. I get launched all the time. Friggin' hammer users and trolls. And it's like, yeah, but I feel like there's a certain, I don't know what to call it, but there's a certain familiarity to it. There's a certain element to that inconvenience that makes sense. And it requires,
it's the beautiful game.
It requires coordination. So it's like, I get what you're saying. Oh, let's just get shockproof and it's not a problem anymore. I'm just like, I think it potentially should be a problem. And there's the whole meme about long swords stripping everybody. Yeah, sure. I'm just thinking like the whole thing about longsword stripping everybody would make you really appreciate when there was a longsword user in your team that didn't do that.
I have a controversial idea that just popped in my head. I haven't even thought it through, so this could be a really dumb idea. But I was just thinking, what if they adjusted the way that, you know how they have different hit zone percentages for blunt versus cutting versus gunner?
Yeah.
What if they actually fudged those and changed it so that it's more realistic? Like cutting damage, you do the most damage on the tail or the wings. Impact, you're going for the head. Bullets, you're going for like wings and feet or something. Like what if they changed it so that not every player was incentivized to go to the head? That could potentially solve it a little bit.
I mean, in some monsters, they do have some elements of that. Like you remember how, for instance, in Safi Jiva, like if you wanted to bring the wings, you'd have to bring a gunner to bust the wings and stuff like that. So they have done some of that in the past. It's just overall in the game, it's more like,
the head is always the
raw damage everywhere, break everything. It's like that. That's the strategy. Just like raw damage everywhere, break everything. And whenever they go away from that formula, they kind of like get backlash from the community almost. Like people weren't happy about the fact that
they just want to play their one weapon, right?
Yeah. People weren't happy about the fact that you needed gunners to break wings. People weren't happy about the fact that you needed elemental damage to not really to kill Elatreon, but to survive Eschaton Judgment.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's a touchy thing, I guess.
It's a touchy thing, but I'll be real.
Everybody get away from the damn head.
I think it's worth it to keep the soul of the game by having these little inconveniences here and there and these very specific mechanics here and there that are very specific to monsters. Like, no, you have to use elemental damage. You don't want to use elemental damage, you're going to die to Eschaton Judgment. It's too bad. It's like, hey, it is what it is. The one thing that I will say is that I feel like every weapon needs to be viable. That I think needs to be a thing. And I also think that there needs to be much better balancing with weapons moving forward. Because I think that this whole thing where the community just accepted that's like, hey, look, ranged weapons, they're just on a different class, okay? There's the class of pleb weapons, which is the melee weapons. Those are the pleb weapons. And then in the pleb weapons, there's like the pleb that kind of like is he's the snitch. So he snitches to the lords, which are the ranged weapons, and they get the buff. So for instance, during Monster Hunter Rise, base Rise, Longsword was the snitch. They were snitching to the ranged weapons, so they get to deal more damage. In Sunbreak, Greatsword is the snitch. They're snitching to the ranged weapons, they get to deal more damage. And the ranged weapons just remain the lords throughout the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like,
what I think is really funny
that needs to stop. That just needs to stop, this hierarchy.
Look at Final Fantasy, right? I'll bring more parallels, but there's a range tax, they call it, right? Where there's a tax for having the ability to attack at a distance, at a safer distance. Is one, you get hit hard as hell. You don't get as much HP as the other people. So you need to be careful. And two, you don't do as much damage. And that's, because you have uptime. You can hit when you're further away. It's like we have the opposite in Monster Hunter. where they're
I mean,
doing everything. They say, "Hey, you have to manage your bullets and your weapons. You poor little thing. You know what? We'll give you tons of damage as a." Or you have to think about your positioning or your distance. You poor baby, even though it's the easiest thing ever. And the bow just laughs because they're like, I don't have to manage shit, and I can get all the damage. Okay, at mid distance, like fuck yeah.
Gaijin just cooking all the range users right now, bro.
I'm saying all the range. There's no range tags at all.
You remember the clip I linked you from Aurora when she just roasted Light Bogan out of nowhere?
Okay. You know what was really funny? I was doing Amatsu farming yesterday or the day before because I just couldn't get the heavenly whatever scale thing. And I switched to Bogun, the Chaotic Gormagala one, of course. It's great. And Amatsu was doing that super attack where you have to zip up really high in the air. And as I'm hanging there, I just go boom on my dial, and I just crafted 60 more pierce ammo. I'm like, how did I just craft that? I'm like sitting in the air. I'm like, yeah, playing range is really hard, man.
Oh, poor me! I have to craft ammunition while I'm hanging.
I just hit one button. Exactly.
Position.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's like I think it's very. I think that they just need to balance it better because I think that when you have speed runs where it's like you just see ridiculous differences, like less than half the time of difference between weapons. Like, I'm sorry, that's unreasonable. That's just completely unreasonable. Like, I can fathom where it's like, oh, this weapon's slightly better than this one. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you compare them and you're like, no, this weapon is like 200% better than that one, and you're just like, bro. I mean,
you know, one thing I do, I gotta give some credit to the Monster Hunter community, the gunners. I love them because in some games you'd get
hate them. I hate every last one of you.
I'll just call them bitches in other games, because they will. No. In other games they'll be like, yeah, but we have inventory management. We have to do it really hard. Blah, blah, blah. No, when I go to a Monster Hunter gunner, I'm like, you guys are getting the sweet end of the deal. You can do so much damage. All they do is they grin. They go, like they know they're getting a sweet deal, and they love exploiting it, and they do a fun job. Like Angbata, who we had on. Like I just love that. There's no pretending like, no, we don't have it easy. We don't have it better than you. They're all like, yeah, that's why we're playing gunner, you idiot. Listen, I'm like, okay, you guys are honest, and I love that.
Angbata, Fumito, all you guys, fuck all y'all.
No. I love you guys. I love you. I love the honesty of knowing. It's like, you've got a sweet stick. It's like, why do you think I'm using it? It's like all of us. We all played the Kill Bibo. We can't lie and say we didn't.
I didn't.
Are you kidding me? Have you ever tried it?
No.
Well, that's why you didn't play it. If you try it once, you're not stopping.
No.
It's crack cocaine. That. That thing was fun.
I play the Gunlance, and I play the Sword and Shield, and I play the Charge Blade.
No.
I used to play Lance, but I don't like Lance and Rise. Even though, dude, do you see what they're doing with Lance right now?
I love it. Oh, they're just breaking the. Oops, we didn't think that one out, did we?
Dude, I've seen like 4 player speed runs with Lance, and you know, people are linking that to me constantly saying, "Oh, fun Lance, huh? Can your gun Lance do this?" And I'm just like, "Hey, man, that's not fair. All right." Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, if I could do that with the gun Lance, I'd do that all the time.
You would?
I don't give a damn. No, because let me explain to you why. Like, one of my favorite concepts when it comes to a shield weapon is being able to reflect damage. I love that. I just really vibe off of that. So when they were talking about that Rampage deco, I wasn't even thinking about exploiting it with the Gustcrab. I was like, oh man, I wish I could do that in the Gunlance. Now when you see them exploiting it with the Gustcrab, I'm like, man, see, now you guys, this is why you can't have nice things. Now they're going to nerf it, and you got nothing. Now that thing is going to be as good as Wyvern Stake Boost, which is worthless.
It was clever, though. Like, the community was clever, man. They find that stuff fast. But you know what? As someone who did like, you know, naked reflection farming in Eureka and Final Fantasy 14, I have no room to speak.
I didn't
you find
do that.
An exploit, you want to use it, as long as you're not affecting other players' things. Hey, a bug is a feature. Use it while you got it, I guess. It's up to you whether or not you feel, if you feel dirty for it, that's a personal thing. Anyway, the other thing I forgot to mention was they also added the ability to search, because there's so many decorations now in the game to craft.
Oh,
they added a
right.
feature you can search by skill, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that
so you
is
can just
good.
pull it up in the menu.
It's like I didn't even know. I mean, I probably did read that they added that, but I still don't use it. I still go through and I'm like, okay, where's Phoenix 4?
Nah,
Phoenix 4, looking for a
search.
Phoenix 4.
Nah.
Hello, Phoenix 4 going once. Phoenix 4 going twice.
No, twice. Because you end up realizing that you passed it up like 6 times, and you're like,
yes. I used to do that all the time. Like, people would always call me
scanning
blind.
your
They're like,
Yu-Gi-Oh deck for a card. Like, where is it?
yeah, especially during stream. During stream, it's so awkward. I'll go through a decoration like 50 times. And
Page
people
2! In the chat.
You just missed it. Go back. And then I go back and I go through it again because I'm just like completely blind to that stuff.
So the last thing I have to talk about with my grindy week and a half of catching up to Sunbreak is just my thoughts on the Risen monsters, because I had not faced them before. I think they're fantastic. I like them more than the Arc Tempered. I really, really love the system of the Risen monsters. Amatsu we already talked about and gushed about. Amatsu is
freaking
awesome. Fantastic. Risen, I would say out of the 4 Risen, because there's like Chameleos, Teostra. Oh no, there's Kushala as well. I always forget about that bitch.
Yeah, you forget about Kushala because he's like the easiest one. He's so easy.
Yeah.
Risen Kush is a joke, dude. That's how easy.
Yes, I think my favorite is Risen Crimson Grow Valstrax. I think he is just so damn cool. I love how far his reach goes when he uses his wings as like pounders or his like glaives, and he's like, shing! Like he reaches halfway across the damn arena.
Now that I have proper gear, because like I first fought him without upgrading my armor, I was lower master rank. I didn't have a proper build. That was frustrating. Dude, I was mad. I was mad when I was on. I was like, just you wait until I get my Chaotic Gormagala Gunlance, get my set online, come back here, beat the crap out of you. And I did. I came back and I beat the crap out of him later. But yeah, the first time I fought him, I was upset because like I was brutally undergeared for it. Nowhere close to being
I
ready.
think my thing is I've been overgeared or proper geared for all of these. So for me, it's been very consistent. I have really consistent like enrage points where they always hit enrage at 50% health. They hit it again at 30, and then they hit it again at 15 or 10. And so it feels like an MMO, which I love. Like it feels like there's phases. But then I looked into it, and it's actually their enrage that triggers it for some of them. So it's just the fact that I've been doing the same types of hunts with the same gear that it feels consistent for me, but it's actually not so much. But I love the idea though. It's great. And I love the orange glow that they get. I think it looks really cool.
The one that I don't like is Chameleos, dude. That dude, Jesus Christ, he wrecks. He might be one of the hard. I mean, Shigaru is obviously the hardest one because he has the least amount of openings.
I thought Chameleos was the easiest. He's on my list as the easiest.
Kushala is the easiest. I don't know. There's something about Chameleos. The first couple times I fought him, I really struggled, and I think it has to do with the fact that, as we've talked about, like the Gunlance gets much slower, right? As monsters get faster, Gunlance just feels like incredibly sluggish. Whereas when the monsters aren't so fast, it's whatever. But because of the fact that it is slower, he gets me with the tongue way too often and steals my spur birds, dude. And that's
I'm
when
using
it
Sword and
really
Shield,
gets you.
so like privilege.
So you ended up not going the Lance route.
Lance, I did make a Lance, and I've been using it. But the problem is that it took me forever to get the Anjanath thing so that I can make the part.
Couldn't you buy the gem?
I didn't have coins back then.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have, and you can't even buy Amatsu stuff. Like it's not in the shop. So like when I was struggling
because Amatsu will come in the next update. It's always the next update.
MMO. Okay, but my second favorite, which I know that you don't like, but as a Sword and Shield player, I adore, is Risen Shagaru. I really like that fight.
Dude, Risen Shaggy I feel like he has too few openings.
It is true. He is on cocaine, as you said. I agree. But as a Sword and Shield user, I'm just underneath him going like, man, it sucks to be the people outside. I'm in my little tent. like just
This is
sitting
why.
there.
This
nice
is
and
why
safe.
the first time you saw me fight him, I went in there and I'm just like, bro, I got guard up, embolden, everything. I'm
You got hit around,
I'm
and
staying
I'm like
here
I'm underneath
behind
him, like
my
I'm
wall.
cool.
Behind my wall, you can't hurt me, Shigaru. He still carded me twice, the bastard. But I got him
Yeah.
on the first try, which is not too shabby. Not too shaggy.
Yoshra, yeah, yay. Yoshra, I thought was great. He felt just like a slightly more buffed and visual version of his normal self. Really fun. Kushala is
He's
depending on who
pushover.
you are, what weapon you use, he's annoying as shit. And to me, the easiest pushover was Chameleos. For Sword and Shield, it's just like it's way too easy to outmaneuver that boy.
Yeah.
Especially with like that Silkbind skill that allows you to like zip forward in any direction with your shield.
With your shield,
I can get
I
out.
love
Yeah.
that thing.
That is great, and I can get out of the way of anything. Like it's totally fine. But I love the Arisen monsters. I think they were really great, good additions, really nice variants. And I love that they didn't change what they did. It was like Arc Tempered, where they just enhanced
They
their
enhanced the moves,
natural.
No, they changed some of the
assholeness.
stuff, like the Volstrax, for instance, has straight up new moves.
Oh no, what I mean is like they're not changing its element or like
Oh, okay.
okay, well, what would an ice version be like? You know, it's like they're not doing
Yeah,
that.
they're
Or
not-
like
they're
a
not
paralysis
variants.
Valstrax. That would suck. Can you imagine a Valstrax that also does paralysis?
Paralysis Volstrax.
Jesus Christ.
At some point somewhere, Ryozu's listening to this and going like, well, this is
Wait, people are
Volstrax.
paralyzed, and then he goes in for the dive. Yeah, I like this.
Yes.
No!
Paralyzed ambush. This sounds like a great
Everybody's
idea.
using Flinch free one, you're dead.
See,
but,
that
yeah,
just
overall,
proves my
I-
point. No more flinch free.
Yeah. So, do I feel like my comments were too harsh? No. Do I feel like my comments were unjustified? No. Do I feel Title Update 5 made a significant difference? Yes. And I had a really good time. I'm going to wait until June to play some more, because right now it's a I don't know a more family friendly way to put it, but I feel that Monster Hunter Sunbreak, there's so many skills, and the hunters are so overpowered that at this point it's just, I call it skill masturbation, because
It's
you
a
don't
bukkake
need any
of
other skills on
skills.
your set. You just put it on there because you can, and it's fun, and you're messing around. Like, they're so strong. I have no desire or need my set to me is like perfect. I'm like, yeah, could I make it a little bit better? Sure. But is it gonna let me smack around Risen Shaggy any better? Probably not. Like, I'm happy like where I'm at, so I had a good time. It was a really nice return to Sunbreak and to enjoy its content. So
My set can definitely still be brutally improved, I feel like, but it's just one of those things. I feel like the investment again to get the 300 is way too much.
yeah,
And
Not yet.
I just don't have the time.
I hope they do a permanent boost for the next update to 300. Like, just give everybody the boost, not just the 240, but all the way to 300. Because I don't want to do 60 levels unboosted. I won't do it.
Yeah, I want to do I want to do those quests, but the time investment I don't think is reasonable. But yeah, and again, it's like, we're not saying we don't like the game, because a lot of people, you guys don't want to do the grind. It's like, no, we've done the
today is
grind.
my day to shower praise at the game. I just had the time of my life playing it. Yes, I'm going back to FF. Actually, I was playing FF while also playing Monster Hunter. I was that. We have a week off here in Japan, so I've been being degenerate. But I am getting sunshine. Don't worry, guys. But it's been a crazy grind, because I like to do that. But it's been really fun.
Yeah, it's again,
But-
that's the thing. You need to give yourself, you need to be able to realize when is it going to be fun and when is it going to stop, because otherwise you end up generating resentment towards the game. And that's the reason why, like I said, I'm not going after the really big grind. I'm like, hey, I'll play while it's fun. It stops being fun, take a break, come back later.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That's my mentality. I call the when the party is over, don't let it drag on. It's like, you can go to a party or a club and like it's fun, and like an hour in you're just kind of like, okay, like I don't really want to be here anymore. You should just leave.
Yeah.
Like, leave it on a high note, you know? Like, when it's over for you, it's over. Like, just it is what it is, as you like to say.
It is what it is. But I got
has been
nothing
fun.
else.
Yeah, no, this has been fun to talk about my experience with the game and finally talk about a crap ton of Monster Hunter. It's been a long time since we had almost a 2-hour
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, dude.
So hopefully people appreciated hearing the thoughts of someone who has been away and has played catch up, and hopefully it encourages some other people who've been away for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Like if they're thinking about catching up, this is a really good point to do that.
I think that Title Update 5 is a very good time for people that want to come back into the game for sure. And to at least, like we were talking about at the start, at least go up to 221, because after 221, then stuff really slows down. Unless you got like some momentum and maybe got a group of friends, then maybe you guys can push it up to 241.
Yeah.
But, going all the way up to 300 is going to be limited to people that really
I can just imagine in my head going up to 300. I can imagine like a meme where it's like bowgun users, and there's that picture of Leonardo DiCaprio like going with his cocktail.
But that's the thing. I feel like a lot of the people who grinded like Giga Hardcore, they were most likely using bowgun. It's like, I don't want to use bowgun. I want to play Gunlance. And it's like, well,
I do
too
like
bad.
bowgun, though. Live bowgun is a hell of a fun time. I was using that against Amato actually. Like bowgun pierce too. It's so fun to just be.
Yeah, especially now
face.
with like you have like rapid fire piercing
spare shots and all that.
Ammunition.
Oh, it's so good.
It's like, wow. Okay, must be nice.
It's a good time. It is.
Anyway, team.
Awesome, man. Well, always fun to talk to you about Monster Hunter, and I can't wait for June. June is going to be a real fun time. Not only because the final Monster Edition, which we'll have to play together, but hopefully we get some news this year about the future of Monster Hunter.
Yeah, who knows if that's going to be at Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards. People are still saying it's probably going to be the TGS.
Game Awards? No, not TGS is dead. It's deader than E3. TGS is a joke.
Damn.
I think we've talked about this before. We've talked about how bad it got when it went digital. Oh my god, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Like you will find everything on websites 3 days before the show starts. They're not announcing that many new interesting things. They're not doing anything. It's you go there, you can line up for 6 hours to do one trial play of a game. It's a joke. Like, and now it's digital and it's really just dumb programming. It's much better to just have people do it at their own leisure when they're ready instead of rushing saying, we're announcing that we'll be announcing something soon. Thank you. It's like, shut up. Get out of here.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that Summer Games Fest and Game Awards is probably the biggest chances.
I'm
of
starting to
news.
think Game Awards, because that's later in the year, right? Like September-ish?
No.
Yeah,
Game Awards
I'm
is
starting
December.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm starting to but if they're going to do the next big Monster Hunter next year, then they need half a year before it comes out to really blow up. Yeah, I don't know what they'll do. There's an argument to be made for both.
As well. I think Game Awards as well, but if it is Summer Games Fest, I wouldn't
a year
be
out,
surprised.
then yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But it's going to be a good year either way.
We'll see about that. We'll see you guys in the next one. If you guys enjoyed this episode, do remember hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz. There's also apparently some feature in the audio-only platform where people can leave comments there now as well that I wasn't aware of.
Oh, nice.
I've seen those being sent in and stuff, so thank you for those. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe.
And happy Qurious crafting.
There's nothing happy about Qurious crafting.